Today we heard the story of the binding of Isaac. We had two lovely Torah readers. In those words, God puts Abraham to the test, saying to him, "Abraham." And Abraham answers, "Hineni, here I am." And Isaac calls out to his father before his near sacrifice, "My father." Abraham responds, "Hineni, bani, here I am, my son." And before slitting Isaac's throat, an angel calls twice to Abraham, and he responds, "Hineni, here I am." Each time Hineni is said in the Torah, a pivotal moment is occurring. These calls were meant to prepare ancestors for difficult tasks, and they understood and they answered, "I am ready." We see this same root in our liturgy, which began last night with the prayer Hineni. This is the prayer leader's confession. It's an admission of inadequacy and self-doubt in the face of a daunting responsibility. But this year, the prayer can include all of us, not just the two of us. The prayer says, "For they've entrusted me with this task." This year, our tasks are voting, trusting our leaders, and remembering the privilege of voting. Voting is our daunting responsibility. It connects us to each other and to ourselves. This is so daunting because we as a nation are in a difficult time. We are being tested this election season, just like Abraham. We are being asked, are we ready for what's to come? We may not be the ones who will lead this country, but we have the opportunity to choose our leader and what could happen in the next 4 years. So we must rise to the challenge of making a decision and casting our vote. I am not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm not allowed to. That is your decision to make. But I will tell you how to consider how to vote. And I want you to vote not only because you have to, but to take the task of voting seriously, because we are privileged to have this opportunity to exercise our rights as citizens. And when you are voting, to consider your Judaism. It may seem that voting or being a civically engaged person is separate from being a religious person. We try to separate church and state in this country. But we can use our Jewish values as a guide. Our values command that we vote and be involved. In the Talmud, we are told, a ruler is not to be appointed unless the community is first consulted. We are told to establish just courts of law. The Torah expects Jews to be active in picking leaders who understand justice. Just chapters before this morning's Torah reading, in Genesis 18, Abraham intervenes in the destructions of the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. God feels that Abraham must be involved. His task is to teach his descendants to do what is right and just, and we are those descendants. Abraham is being tried to see if he understands the mandate to pursue righteousness and justice. And we too need to pursue those ideals and seek leaders who are moral and upstanding, like Abraham, Moses, Jacob, Joseph, and King Solomon. They were humble, righteous, patient, forgiving, and wise. They were symbolic exemplars. And so we have a responsibility to consider candidates and to cast our vote. We must be like our ancestors and say, "Here I am, Hineni. I have made a decision, and I am putting my faith and trust in this person to lead our country." Voting and expressing our views is part of our psyche. It is natural and part of being human. Viktor Frankl said, "It is a peculiarity of man that he can only live by looking to the future, and this is his salvation. In the most difficult moments of his existence, although he sometimes has to force his mind to the task, looking to the future is a unique human ability and a challenge." Now, why is this election so important? Perhaps you think the last 2 elections were crucial, or that all elections are important. You're right. But I think there is more weight attached to this one. Our democracy has been compromised, and in fact, it's actually in decline. Democracy is not automatic. It requires engagement. Protect Democracy, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that seeks to check attacks on democracy, argued that democracy peaked in 2007, and then it started to decline in 2011. The number of autocratic countries started to grow at the same time, And there were free and fair elections. There were checks and balances, protection of civil liberties, and all of that is now taken for granted. And that's resulted in our democratic decline. And this decline has led to institutional distrust, violence, powerlessness, and polarization. We saw all of those things on January 6th, where election results were questioned, voter suppression happened, and institutions were less committed to democratic principles. There were lots of shifts because of the decline in the US. There was isolation, less connection. We're being put into sort of boxes and in certain neighborhoods. We have information ecosystems rising. There's lots of social media putting a monopoly on our opinions and perspectives. We only hear perspectives that we agree with instead of hearing a multitude of different viewpoints. And all of this leads to disinformation, misinformation, and that results in chaos and confusion. In this election season, we have to consider how to respond to this decline and a threat to our democracy. Protect Democracy has several suggestions. They argue that we should learn and educate others on democracy. We should be a part of civic life, so we should all vote. And we should have mutual support for people targeted by democratic decline. And we should avoid putting our heads in the sand, retreating, being insular, and avoiding the election or not voting. There's the real possibility this year that you may not be in favor of either candidate for president this election. I still encourage you to vote. There are statewide and local elections on our ballot. Jeremiah tells us, "Seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile." We need to pray for a government, even one we might not like or agree with. Why is it important to vote? Perhaps you feel your vote won't matter, but Jews have a large impact on the election, even though we are a minority. There are 9 states with the largest populations of Jews, and they represent 212 of the 270 electoral votes. We know that voting matters. We vote because we know that government equals progress. And if a government is working properly, it can reduce violence and increase equality. It's responsible for maintaining stability, providing regulations, and protecting the vulnerable. If there are weaknesses, it's our job to advocate for improvement. And if we neglect this, it's counter to our mandate to improve the world. And so our goal is to lift up leaders and hope that they succeed. When we vote, we create power, and in the end, give ourselves some sort of hope. Hope is in the cycle of democracy. The cycle goes safety, agency, belonging, institutional legitimacy. They help us remember that we belong in this country, and that our vote matters, and that we are connected. It helps us remember to trust our neighbors and our local government, to be open to meeting new people and living in community with different kinds of people. And all of these components and results, they're all contagious. And all of this comes from simply voting for a president who represents those ideals. Our Jewish beliefs can become actions. The Torah tells us what we should value. Maimonides said, "Every one of the 613 precepts serves to inoculate some truth, to remove some erroneous opinion, to establish proper relations in society, to diminish evil, to train in good manners, or to warn against bad habits." The commandments and the Torah are a set of tools with a higher purpose. As Jewish people, our decision regarding the election must have something to do with the conflict in Israel. It's our responsibility to protect Israel and to think about how we are protected in the United States. Since October 7th of last year, anti-Semitism has risen by 900%. 900%. That is a ridiculous number that I'm sure none of us can really understand. But we need to ask ourselves, how does each candidate combat anti-Semitism and bigotry? When thinking about Israel on October 7th, it might be more important to think about what happened on October 8th, the day after. October 8th and democracy are connected. On October 8th, some of the country, the Jewish people, were reeling in response to what happened. But parts of the country, actually the majority, and the world, were joyful and indifferent to the deaths. And we didn't feel like we belonged. There were college students who protested. There were toxic workplaces created. But the way we've been treated is not a reason not to vote. Rather, it is our motivation. Elie Wiesel said, "Because we remember, we despair. Because we remember, we have the duty to reject despair. We remember the killers. We remember the victims, even as we struggle to invent 1,000 reasons to hope. When the world ceases to give reasons to hope, Jews create new hope. Hope is who we are and cannot give up the possibilities of this country." As we contemplate the year ahead, it is my hope that we too discover new possibilities in our country and our world. Rabbi Chaim Steinmetz wrote, "The new year is not merely a fresh beginning, a time to forget the past year's curses and crises. Rather, it's a time to reflect on how to use past crises to teach us the lessons of future renewal." The new year gives us a chance to reflect on crises of our country, world, and ourselves, to inspire us to be more involved and make a change. This is what voting does. Rabbi Isaac Luria of the 16th century believed in hope in the midst of catastrophe. One of his champion beliefs said that the divine light that flooded creation was too strong, and so all the light broke into many different vessels. And then God's light lay hidden in the rubble. It is our task to heal or mend the world by searching for those fragments. We need to do what we can, when we can, to create hope. And our task to do so is to vote and to get everyone else to do so. Our vote and the hope will affect our year ahead. May we use our vote to bring more light and hope into this world. Shana Tova. Happy New Year.
Shana Tova.